Oh, hi everyone. I'm sorry about the delayed start. I was doing my best AJ Green impression of not being aware. But in all seriousness, welcome everyone to another episode of the Man to Man College Podcast. I'm your host Tanner. Joined today with my good friend and co-host Mason.
What's up, guys?
Mason, how are you doing?
Uh, well, as everyone knows, Week 8 Thursday night game was a pretty good one. Unless you're a Cardinals fan, and then it was pretty sucked at the end. But other than that, it was a decent week of football. We got some upsets. We got the Saints had a good win over the Buccaneers. Then we had the trade deadline, so it was a good week of football for sure.
It was now in the new month of November. Hope everyone had a good and spooky Halloween. And for this first, podcast of November, this is I think like the eighth or ninth episode of this season. We have a couple of interesting topics. So, um, first of all, I want to discuss and grade the first year head coaches, because I feel like a lot of the teams we talk about are good teams, and I want to talk about some of the bad teams. And a lot of the teams that have first year head coaches are pretty bad. So I do want to kind of touch on that. We'll also talk about the trade deadline and injury. I also want to say thank you all for the support and feedback this show has been getting. And I do want to take some of the feedback into the consideration. And part of that is to have shorter episodes. So we usually go for about 50 minutes to an hour. I wanted to have today go for about 40 minutes. So if we have time, we'll do the week 9 recap. If not, then you'll see me do the prediction video of it on this channel. So starting off with the first year head coaches, the first head coach we're going to talk about is Robert Saleh of the New York Jets. Now, I love this hire, Mason. I think you liked it too, if I remember correct.
Yeah, I did like it a lot.
And so far it's been good. I think at times it's been like underwhelming. Sometimes it's been overwhelming. This is what we want. I think Robert Saleh is a very streaky coach. When he is great, I mean, he's in there, he's like, who are he's like, let's go. He's pumped up. You have that motivation. He gets guys into it. This Jets defense isn't terrible. Um, I do want to mention one player, and that is John Franklin Myers. He is a most name that people don't know, but he's a defensive lineman for the Jets. He's having a great season, so I didn't want to bring some attention to him. And like when Robert Sala has done a great job, he's done a really good job. This Jets team plays above their competition. The two wins they have are against the Titans and the Bengals. They beat the Bengals this past week, and I got to give them credit. However, there's also a downside to Salah. They only have two wins, and at times during his press conferences, he's pretty quiet. And sometimes I don't feel like he holds his players accountable. So he's a very up and down coach. He reminds me a lot of Ron Rivera. Both are, defensive minded. Both seem like great leaders, but they're very up and down. Ron Rivera with the Carolina Panthers, he took them to a Super Bowl in 2015. Now, if the Washington football team, Ron Rivera is struggling after, lost to the Broncos this past weekend. I could see Salah being very similar with the Jets as he continues on. I could see the Jets maybe going to a Super Bowl in 2 to 3 years, but would he ever be someone who's consistently great? I don't know. So, if that being said, I think so far this season has been a mixed bag, but I'm definitely more positive. I'm gonna go for B plus on his grade so far on the season.
No, yeah, I think Robert Saleh has done a pretty good job so far with the Jets and the organization around it. I mean, he came into one of the worst situations he probably could have in the NFL at the moment. Just a new, young, rebuilding team, not a lot of pieces to work with. But I think he's done a good job. I mean, last week they had Mike White as their quarterback one, and he played amazing, and they ended up pulling up an upset against the number one at the time AFC seed Cincinnati Bengals, who were on fire in the past weeks. I mean, they were absolutely killing, and the Jets came in and pulled up one of the biggest upsets of the week for sure, if not the biggest. And they have a lot of young pieces. I mean, you have Michael Carter. He had a great game last week. You have Zach Wilson. He's injured. Corey Davis. He's been injured, but when he's played, played good. You also have guys like I'm forgetting his name, Carl
Carl,
Lawson,
he's out, but
who,
he's
who who
good.
hasn't played, but they'll get back next year. So I think it's just like a combination of they need more veteran leadership, and then also guys are getting back next year. But I think he's done a good job. I'd probably give him a B just because I think he's been in that uh, above average level so far. And I really like what I've seen from him. And I also think he's a good sideline coach. I mean, sometimes he doesn't show emotion in the press conferences, but on the sideline, he definitely is one of the most emotional coaches for sure. Um, I think he's going to build something good there. I think he'll be a coach that the Jets will be very happy they have in 2 to 3 years.
Yes, we both have very high expectations for him in a couple years.
Hmm.
I think one thing that could happen is Mike LaFleur, the brother of Matt LaFleur. So the Packers head coach Matt LaFleur, his brother Mike LaFleur is the Jets OC. He's kind of been a bit disappointing. So I can maybe see a scenario where Mike LaFleur gets fired and Robert Saleh brings in another offensive coordinator and they have success. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Speaking of offensive coordinator, when we talk about Arthur Smith next, the Falcons head coach, this has been very disappointing for me. Arthur Smith was previously the Titans offensive coordinator, and when he was there, it was a very good Titans offense. They were top of the league. In Atlanta, it's not really been there. You know, I don't see Arthur Smith as a leader type in his press conferences and just his presence. I don't feel it. He seems like a nice person, but I don't get the leadership sense. His play calling and offensive game have been very disappointing. Cordell Patterson's been cool to see kind of rise up. But besides that, it's been very bland, and I don't really see the team building aspect. They trade away Calvin Ridley. Oh no, my gosh, they trade away Julio Jones this past off season, and yet you keep Matt Ryan. It's just like, are you doing a rebuild? Are you not? Um, I'm just kind of confused of what the Falcons are doing. I don't see Arthur Smith as this great head coach. I do want to mention real quick. I'm very proud of Calvin Ridley, Falcons wide receiver for stepping away from the game to deal with mental health stuff. It's a very serious issue. And a lot of people talking about how, oh, it'll affect a fantasy team. I just want to say I'm very proud of Calvin Ridley for taking time to help himself. And yeah, I just did want to mention that. But back to Arthur Smith, just have not been impressed. I think the most telling thing is last season when Raheem Morris was the interim head coach, for the 2020 Falcons team. That team and now this 2021 Falcons team coached by Arthur Smith, they seem very similar. So I'm going to go C minus with Arthur Smith. Falcons have just been very one dimensional this season, and I think a lot of that has to do with coaching.
Yeah, Arthur Smith definitely doesn't seem like someone who was kind of ready for that head coaching position. I think he was a good coordinator, but like you said, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you just don't get that emotion and charisma and leadership from him. And I think that's one of the biggest things of head coaching. Like, yeah, you need good schemes, you need good play calling, but I think a good portion of that is also just being a good presence in the locker room. And not to say he isn't, but a guy like Robert Saleh, in the locker room, he's going to bring 130% of his energy and get guys like that around the league. And I don't know if we're getting that from him. And he's also just been very inconsistent with his play calling. I mean, the beginning of the year, Kyle Pitts is brutally underused, and they finally just started using him. And now they're like, okay, Kyle Pitts is good. I wonder why we took him with the fourth pick. Um, and then they also signed Mike Davis, who's honestly played good when he's played, but then they just kind of like are like the Eagles, where they just don't run the football a lot with them. But they have used Cordell Patterson in a great light. I think that's the best thing about this team so far is the way they've used Cordell Patterson. He's almost having a breakout year in terms of his offensive play and at the age of 31, which is really crazy to see because we always knew him as a good special teams player, but now he's kind of evolved into this running back, wide receiver hybrid who's really good. Um, but no, I do agree with you. I think this team's been too inconsistent. They win games that they should, which I like to see. Um, they started off 0-3. I believe they're 3-4 now, so they've
Mm-hmm.
kind of resurfaced a little bit. The 3 wins they do have aren't against any impressive teams, but I do like that they are winning against teams that they should, because you see a lot of rookie head coaches, they kind of lose games that they shouldn't, games that fall out of reach, games they can't close out. So I do like to see that from him. I'd probably give him a C. I think he's pretty average so far. Um, I think this offseason can be really telling of how Arthur Smith will be, because I think this offseason they really need to start looking at Matt Ryan's replacement. He doesn't fit this timetable at all for this Falcons team. And I do like their defense a lot. I think AJ Terrell is being really slept on as a cornerback this season. He's had a great year. There's other holes on that defense they need to get. Like they need pass rushers really badly, but just the same situation with Robert Saleh, kind of like a young team. But I think if they get him a young quarterback, maybe next year we'll see what he really has up his sleeve.
Yeah, I'm really high on Carson Strong, current college quarterback. He's a very smart, um, processor of the field, and I would love to see him go to Atlanta. I do think they need to trade away Matt Ryan because I think that having him there is just kind of awkward. I think um, Denver maybe, but the Broncos are rebuilding. Washington would be a cool landing spot, or Miami. I think that the Dolphins. Listen, the thing I don't want to branch too much off of this, but you have Tua. I like Tua to an extent, but the Dolphins have a roster that's pretty good. And I feel like Matt Ryan could really boost that roster. And I think trading for Matt Ryan would be a lot easier than trading for Deshaun Watson. So that's what I would say. But yeah, I like how we're on the same page with Arthur Smith. Just kind of has been seems like a fine head coach, just nothing stands out, which is kind of disappointing because I thought he could have been something pretty great. I'm going to talk about a couple of the next coaches in kind of the same sentence because I have some more thoughts. So Urban Meyer F, Dan Campbell, I'm going to go B. I think that Dan Campbell gets a B, and so does David Coley. They both get a B. So Dan Campbell, Lions head coach, B. David Coley, Texans head coach, B. And I think they're very different but similar. I think they're in similar situations. The Lions and Texans have two of the worst teams I've ever seen. It's not even like so bad that it's like funny. They're just bad. Um, but I think that they have different styles to coaching. What I love about Dan Campbell is that he has that personality, he has that fight. He's gonna go all out. You can tell he's really passionate about the team. And I think in some way the Lions have had some good elements this season. I know they just pretty much got destroyed by the Eagles, but the week before that against the Rams and teams like the Ravens, Packers, 49ers, good competition. The Lions have some tricks up their sleeves. Their defense kind of comes with these big plays, like they'll force a fumble again, interceptions, very up and down, but it's there. Deandre Swift has been a very nice player. I don't feel like I've mentioned him a ton on this show, and I want to bring attention to him. Running back, he's definitely a superstar player, can do it all. He's very good in switching motions. So I feel like the Lions, even though they haven't won a game, they do have some strengths. They just probably need quarterback and wide receiver. I think their defense is actually not too bad. And then the Texans, David Coley is more of the leader kind of feel example. I love the way he speaks. It's very professional. You can tell that he's a true leader. People are going to follow. The Texans is just Davis Mills is terrible. I hated that draft pick. He's just so like blah when he plays. The Texans defensive line though has actually been pretty good. I remember that Cardinals Texans game a couple weeks ago that it was kind of close at first before the Cardinals ran away with it because the Texans D line was actually pretty good. In fact, the 49ers trade for one of the Texans defensive linemen. So I think that both coaches were just dealt a terrible hand. They're very different styles of coaching, but I think both are doing a good job. I think both should be kept here. So I'm gonna go B with each. And I think that even though the Texans and Lions are not good, they do have some good elements I do want to mention.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, talking about Urban Meyer real quick, definitely an F. I mean, he's had off the field distractions and then he's had on the field distractions. I think he just mismanaged his team very poorly. And if he doesn't retire after this year, I don't think the Jets will fire him. But after next year, if it's pretty much the same, he's definitely going to be canned. I mean, they're having Trevor Lawrence throw 54 times a game when they have a guy like James Robinson in the backfield is just ridiculous. Like you can't have a rookie quarterback throw 50 times a game and expect to win, honestly. It's just very, very rare. And James Robinson's having a great year, and they just decide when pick and choose when to use him. Dan Campbell, I think I'm pretty high on this guy more than most. I know a lot of people like him, but I go A. I really, really love Dan Campbell. I think and it's weird because I know the Lions are 0-8, but like that has nothing to do with him and his coaching because he's been in so many dogfights with these teams. I mean,
Mhm.
they almost beat the Ravens, but then Justin Tucker hit the longest field goal in history. I mean, they almost upset the Rams. And Matt Stafford's revenge game was a very close game. And they have blowout wins, but I mean, you have to expect that with the team they have. I mean, Jared Goff has been absolutely atrocious this year. I mean,
He's been a lot worse than I expected. I was like, oh wow, he's like
Yeah.
really bad.
I mean, after his second year, I mean, he's regressed pretty horribly. I mean, it's pretty easy to tell that he's just not the same person he used to be. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with that contract situation. If they're just going to let it play out, then maybe just let him walk in a couple of years. They're definitely going to go for a quarterback, I think, in this year's draft, without a doubt. And then no, yeah, like you said, I think their defense is a lot of fight, and I think that has a lot to do with Dan Campbell just really being a great coach. And I think if you ask like every single Lions player, maybe besides Jared Goff in that locker room, I think they're going to say Dan Campbell is one of their favorite coaches just because he puts so emotion into that team and he just cares so much about winning. And I'm really hoping that the Lions win soon just because I really want to see Dan Campbell succeed. Honestly, I think he's just a really good guy. And then David Coley, I'd go like a B plus. I think he's done fine for what he's had. And what that is not a lot. I mean, he has Davis Mills as his quarterback one right now, who finally broke the Tyrod Taylor curse of Tyrod Taylor getting hurt and then the rookie quarterback being good because Davis Mills is not good whatsoever. I really hope Tyrod Taylor comes back because I think if Tyrod comes back, I think they'll win a couple more games to end off the year. Because when he was playing really good the beginning of the year. Unfortunately, he got hurt. But no, like you said, that defensive line is very, very good. I mean, they're applying pressure to pretty much every team they play. It's pretty much just about a consistent level. And with a young team, a lot of new pieces, and a rookie head coach, I think that'll come with time. Yeah, so I'd go a B plus for David Coley for sure.
Yeah, I do want to spend a bit more time on the Texans because we haven't really talked about them. We're just like, they're bad and move on, which they are. I honestly think that Davis Mills might be the worst starting quarterback I've ever seen in my life. I'm not exaggerating. His processor is not there. He doesn't throw up anticipation. He's just like, this guy's not open. Boom, incomplete, intercepted. He's terrible at play extension. He doesn't have like a great arm at all. He is just really bad. I didn't like that draft pick because I'm like, if you want to draft a rookie, go with someone who's mobile. So that way, the stuff you have with Deshaun Watson, you can just put a mobile rookie into it. But the Texans really missed on there. So I really wanted to bring that up. Next up, we have Nick Sirianni. It's interesting as an Eagles fan because I love the hire. Mason, I forgot. Did you like the Nick Sirianni hire? I remember you kind of being in the middle, like, yeah,
Yeah,
could be.
I'm pretty much in the middle. It's just basically a wait and see on how I felt about it.
Yeah, it's been more bad than good, is what I'll say. I think that he just is trying to be, I think, a head coach too hard. He's making metaphors about flowers in the locker room and this stuff. And I just feel like that be him. He needs to be himself, right? He's had good success in NFL coordinating with the Colts, Chargers, running good offensive schemes. I think sometimes he's trying too hard to like be this head coach, and sometimes that's just not the way to go, right? He's a younger head coach. Look at guys like Sean McVay. Sean McVay's not having plant metaphors. He's being motivated. He's like being honest. I feel like sometimes Nick Sirianni doesn't seem like an honest person when he leads. I think the play calling's been okay. I think it's better than last year with Doug Peterson. I will say that. I think with some of the younger guys like Kenneth Gainwell, rookie running back, there's been a lot of success. Devontae Smith, I think, has been used well. Dallas Goedert, who's still somewhat young, I think has done well. I think the young players have succeeded well with Sirianni. I think some of the veteran guys, there's been a bit of a disconnect, I feel like. That's the vibe I get. But as this Eagles team gets younger, which they will with three like first round picks next year, I think Sirianni will go up. I do think he should have another season. I think that ultimately it's been a mixed bag, and I am going to lean more negatively. So I'm actually going to go with about a C plus for him. I just think it's not really where you want him to be at. And then I'll talk about the final head coach. Brandon Staley's an A plus plus. I loved what he's done for the Chargers. Not only does Staley, he's a great guy to watch and talk to. And one comment I get is how are you able to kind of follow teams? I would suggest watching head coach press conferences because not only do you get a good sense of the team, but also where the team is at and the coach. And I think watching the press conferences, even like 10 minutes, can get you a really good kind of taste of where an NFL team is at. But besides that, Staley's been great. I love his leadership. I think he's done a good job with the Chargers. I think that they've played very well, very smart. Yes, they've lost some games, but they're always in it. And it's not like, oh man, the Chargers blew it. It's a back and forth battle. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But I think Staley's doing a really great job with LA. I think him and Justin Herbert are going to build something special. I think that, he's ultimately going to win a Super Bowl with this team. So I'm going to go A+ for him.
Yeah, for Nick Sirianni, I'm just gonna go C. I think he's just average. As of now, I do not like um his I feel like his first quarter scheme works, and then after that, he kind of just abandons it and then improvises on the spot. I mean, when Miles Sanders was actually playing, I mean, they underutilized him like crazy. They just never ran the ball with him. I know that's the biggest complaint that I think Eagles fans have this year is like, why are we not running the football? Because like I said about the Jaguars, though, you're not going to win games running the football 9 times with your best running back. It's just not winning football, especially when you have a young quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who's honestly struggled really a lot this year. He's had big games, and he's also had games where it's just not looking very good for him. But I do like Nick Sirianni's presence as a coach. I think he has a lot good relationship with the players and the organization, which I love to see because Doug Peterson last year was kind of what the opposite. Doug Peterson really didn't have a good relationship with his players and really have the respect. And I think Nick Sirianni does have that, which is I think really big to build around because when you have the trust between the players and the coach, it really opens a lot for you. But no, also just a super young team, and I think he's done an okay job. I mean, you have games where you blow the brakes off the Lions, which is really good to see. I know it's just the Lions, but it's still you win by 38 points to any team. I think that's really impressive, especially in the NFL. And then you have games like the Chiefs where you're pretty much in it to the end, and then the Chiefs kind of just pull away. It's just I think that will come with time, and you can close out games like that better. So I think he's pretty average as of now, just a C. And then Brandon Staley, I'm gonna go A, not an A+, just because I think the Chargers have had games where it's like I don't know what's going on. It's just a little too inconsistent. I mean, that Ravens game, like, there's no reason they shouldn't have been blown out. I mean, I know the Ravens are a good team, but for the Chargers having these Super Bowl expectations and trying to become one of the best powerhouses in the AFC, I think you can't get blown out like that. But other than that, he's done a really good job. I think Herbert has done a great job. The way he's used that defense is good. I mean, Derwin James, I feel like he's one of the biggest names in the NFL, but I feel like not a lot of people talk about him this year. He's having a fantastic year. Joey Bosa, we know who Joey Bosa is. He's having a fantastic year as well. Just a really good, solid defense. And then their offense, I really like. I mean, Eckler, he's the real deal. I love him. Such a like multiple use back. Mike Williams having a breakout year. He's a touchdown machine. That offensive line has been really impressive. I think Rashawn Slater, if Jamar Chase wasn't obviously Jamar Chase, I think I would give the offensive rookie either to Slater just because he's been so good for him. And I know they don't give it to offensive linemen a lot, so just wanted to show him a little bit of love. But he's been fantastic this year, and I think this Chargers team is going to do really good the rest of the year. And I'm honestly really excited to see what they can do in the playoffs because, like I said, I mean, all it takes is one game, and they go on some crazy run. Who knows what can happen? But yeah, definitely a really good coach for the Chargers.
Wouldn't surprise me if the Chargers like going on a run. I feel like that Staley has that energy. I think that's why people love him is that confidence he has as well. And it wouldn't shock me if they win against a team like the Bills or the Chiefs if they make it, or the Raiders or the Ravens, and if they go on a Super Bowl run. I think that would be really cool to see happen. I think that the potential is there. Staley reminds me a lot of John Harbaugh. I think that they're both very similar guys and defensive minded, kind of team building, morale based coaches. So that's going to be the rookie head coaches. I wanted to talk about that because we don't really talk about the bad teams that much. I didn't want, well, the Chargers are good, but I didn't want to talk about some of the teams that have not been doing as well. Next up, I want to talk about a lot of the big NFL news that happened, the trades, the injuries. I'm going to start us off with some of the injuries that happened. So, it's just sad to see with injuries, prayers up to those who got affected by injuries, especially Jameis Winston. He was having a very tough, kind of up and down season. He was starting to get going. It's just tough to see. I don't think that this like drastically changes. Like I think with Winston, the Saints would have probably been a 9-win team. Now I think they're down to 7 or 8 wins. If I were them, I would trade for like Mariota, sign a Cam Newton, someone who's kind of like Winston. We have some mobility. I still think the Saints are a team that I don't think this is their season. With Michael Thomas being out for the year as well, I think that just kind of adds that it's not the year for the Saints. And even though Winston was playing well, he still has his moments where it's like, I don't know if that was the right decision. He's definitely getting a lot better. But next up, you had Derrick Henry out for the season for the Titans, which sucks. He's so fun to watch. And then also, it's just the timing of it all because the Titans Rams game is coming up this Sunday, and I've been wanting to see Derrick Henry and Aaron Donald go against it for a while, and we're not going to have that. So that was devastating. Just this whole Henry injury because he's so fun to watch. Seems like a great guy. However, I think that the Titans have always had issues. I think that the Derrick Henry injury really shines light on the Titans' issues. Yes, I get they signed AJ Peterson. Cool. Nice to see AP back, one of these NFL legacy players. But that's probably the most positive I'm gonna get here in the next like 5 minutes. So enjoy. So the Titans have really failed as an organization for the past couple seasons. They have missed on both sides of the ball and have not replaced the talent when needed. So offensively, this team I thought, okay, Derrick Henry getting the ball a ton last year makes sense. They have AJ Brown who's good, but they're missing another piece. They go out and get Julio Jones this offseason. Julio Jones, one of the most gifted wide receivers to ever play the game, goes from the red and black of the Falcons to the blue and black of the Titans. I'm like, okay, Julio Jones on the Titans. Where's he been? You have Julio, and yes, I know he's not the same, but you still have him on your team. And half the time the ball isn't going his way. He's not schemed up well. They are not using him in a way that is effective for this offense. Second of all, Julio Jones and AJ Brown have been injured. Have the Titans traded for a wide receiver? Nope. Have they signed a wide receiver? Nope. They basically just left this wide receiving core as is, even though they have major holes. And since their offense is, the passing game has not been there, Derrick Henry's getting the ball a ton, which may or may not have led to the injury. I don't want to speculate, but that's what people are saying. So the offense, and by the way, Arthur Smith leaves to the Falcons. And I think that you should have gone like someone from college as OC. You really don't. You really fail there. And then this defense has been terrible. You signed Bud Dupree, and I make sure remember both of us were like, yeah, that's terrible. Yeah, he's been terrible. What you expect? He's not someone who's going to change the defense. You draft Caleb Furley, and before Furley's injury, he was fine. You have Justin Simmons and Harold Landry, which I know people love, but I'm a bit low on them. They make one or two nice plays a game. Okay, wonderful. You want more than that. They're not like a Miles Garrett, TJ Water, Max Crosby. They don't help this defense at all. And I mean, the times, I mean, you go from 2019 losing in the AFC Championship game to the Chiefs, last year losing a hard battle to the Ravens in a wild card to now this. I think they're going to really fall off a cliff in the next couple of years. And I think the Titans Super Bowl window has been closed. I think that by not addressing the defense, by really mismanaging this offense, you really closed their window. I feel like about 2012 or so, 2013, the Titans were always this team that would go 7-9, like the AFC version of the Rams. Well, now Titans fans, I have good news for you. It's not going to be 7-9 anymore. These not those extra games. Enjoy being 7-10. I think this front offense has been just terrible. They've mismanaged this team, and I think that this Titans team is going to go down as one of the biggest what ifs in NFL history because I think they could have won the Super Bowl, but unfortunately they mismanaged it.
Yeah, I mean their record isn't even that bad, but I think after this Derrick Henry injury, it's definitely going to take a turn for the worse, for sure. I mean, I don't like to speculate either, but I'm pretty sure Derrick Henry did get injured because they were literally running him 40 times a game. He was on pace to have the most rushes by far. And I know there's an extra game, but yeah, I think even in a 16 game season by the averages, he still would have had the record, which is like, yeah, he's good, but you also need him in the playoffs, and you're not going to have him in the playoffs perhaps because he could be out for the rest of the year. Um, and I talked about this a lot during the offseason. I really wasn't that impressed with Ryan Tannehill. I know he has a good touchdown interception ratio, but I think this year he's really getting exposed. If Derrick Henry gets uh, stopped, I mean, you look at the game like the Colts game, which they ended up winning, but it was closer than it probably should have been. And then even the Cardinals game, I mean, they're like, Tannehill beat us with your arm, and he can't do that. He's a game manager, I think. He's good when he has the lead because he can give the ball to Derrick Henry and give it to AJ Brown. But when you need someone that like to rally your team around, I don't think he's that. And then you have a guy like AJ Brown who can't stay on the field half the time. He's a really good player when he can. And then same with Julio. It's just like I get why they get Julio. I mean, he's a big name, good receiver, but he's not the same Julio we used to know. He's has injury problems, and I think you could have used A, that money, and B, that draft capital to get a defensive guy, like a guy like Von Miller, who was just traded. Um, or just someone like that, just someone that can help out your team, maybe a Fletcher Cox,
Oh, that
who
would have
was
been good.
who was talked about in trade rumors. Instead, they go out and get Bud Dupree, who's coming off an ACL injury, and I think me and Tanner both said he's very overrated as a player. Um, he was only really good because TJ Watt was taking triple and double teams while Bud Dupree is a open guy, and now Bud Dupree's kind of like the main pass rusher, and it's like, where are you, dude? I can't see you. Um, the only good bright spot of that defense is literally Kevin Byard. I feel like, I mean, he's been fantastic this year. He's always been fantastic. And then they let a guy like a Dory Jackson go in the offseason. And now they're having cornerback problems. It's like, I don't know what you guys are trying to accomplish here. Caleb Farley's good, but then again, you also knew when drafting him, he has injury problems. And what happened? He's injured. It's just this team has too many injury problems, and it's kind of their own fault for going out and getting injury prone guys. Um, and no, I definitely agree with you. I definitely think this team's going to go downhill fast because Derrick Henry is the heart and soul of that entire team. Um, and it's really sucks to see him get injured because he's actually such a fun player to watch, and he's a great guy. Um, he's not like someone who like gets in everyone's face. He's very humble, which is very surprising
Mhm.
for a 6'3", 220-pound best running back in the NFL. Um, but no, it sucks to see him go down. But yeah, everything you said, you hit it on the nail. I think this Titans team is they're gonna miss him a lot. And I know they got Adrian Peterson, but I mean, I don't know what 35-year-old Adrian Peterson is gonna do compared to one of the best running backs in their prime. So
Yeah, I think also like it's just kind of disappointing with the Titans of a whole as how they done. I think that this team should get more heat than they're actually getting. I know Titans fans are like, well, defense played well against the Chiefs. That was one time. You need consistency in the NFL. Okay, yeah, you beat the Chiefs one time. Or with that defense, the defense the rest of the season's been very lackluster. So I think that the Titans are not going in a good direction. I think that's it in terms of injury news. I know Daniil Hunter's out for the year for the Vikings, which is really unfortunate because I really like Daniil Hunter, great guy and player, but the Vikings are just kind of going downhill. I think Daniil Hunter should make a good trade. I think he's up there in age, and he's been a very underrated player in his career, one of the best defensive edges with that mix of speed and power. I would like to see Hunter go to a team like the Chiefs who need that defense, or even a team like the Cardinals. Um, or another team, like who else would be a good team? Like maybe a team like
Titans.
Titans would be good. Bills pair him with Greg. Ooh, Gregory Rousseau and Daniil Hunter would be fun to watch in the Bills. I love that. But yeah, I think I think his time with the Vikings over, and I think the Vikings should reset. I don't want to get too much into it, but I think you know Mike Zimmer should be gone. That was a very embarrassing loss to the Cowboys. The Vikings are just a very stable team in a lot of their games. They don't ever play to win. It's like they're playing not to lose, and they really should have won that. I think that was it for in like big injury news. In terms of trade deadline, there was not a whole ton of stuff. The Von Miller to the Rams was the biggest trade, and that is big because this Von Miller being traded, but I don't think there's a lot to talk about. The Broncos are a bad team. They're rebuilding. They're trying to build towards the future. And I think 2 second-round picks is fair for Von Miller. He is up there in age, and defensive players are valued less in this league since it's very offensively based. So I think for the Rams, it'll be cool to see Donald, Miller, and Ramsey. I love the aggression by them. I think having three elite players on one team is great. And I think that it'll be cool to see Donald and Miller go off of each other. I think the Broncos have some future picks. I like how the Broncos are willing to move on. Um, it was funny because I thought like I check on the other team's Instagrams, and the Broncos were posting like 10 things about Von Miller thanking him. And everyone in the comments was like, stop posting, just crying emojis. It's very tough for Denver fans. And I get that, but I think they ultimately made the right move about trading away Miller, going for the future. And I think the Rams are going to have a pretty great defense. So I don't think there's any other trade moves that happened that were really big. I know 49ers made a move for D-line. Jets traded for that Chiefs lineman. What's his name? I know it's like something Tardif.
Oh, Laurent Tord Dardif or something like that.
Yeah, he seems like a great guy. Because I think he's a good offensive lineman. So good move there by the Jets, but not a lot to say in terms of trade deadline. Mason, if you want to add your thoughts real quick.
No, yeah, big pickup for the Rams. It's going to be big for their Super Bowl push. It's pretty much like we're all in type of thing. And then the Chiefs got Melvin Ingram, who I think is a very solid pickup for them. Nice veteran pass rusher
Oh yeah, I do like that.
to add to that team. And then talking about teams that didn't make a move, which they probably should have, the Cleveland Browns. I think the Cleveland Browns, I don't know what's going on with them and Odell Beckham, but they should have traded him when they had the chance because now Kevin Stefanski, a day after the trade deadline, is saying Odell Beckham is essentially not on our team. What do you mean by that? Like he was dismissed from practice today. This is breaking news, by the way, a couple hours ago. He was dismissed from practice. Um, Odell was ready to play, by the way. It's not like Odell's like being a diva. He was ready to practice. Like Kevin Stefanski basically said he's not on the team right now. And I just don't understand what you mean by that. But then you also keep him. I just think it's really irritating as an NFL fan watching Odell kind of suffer on the Browns because the Browns are a good team, yes, but they underutilize Odell like crazy. I mean, there's an 11-minute video compilation of Odell Beckham being wide open and Baker Mayfield just throwing a check down or something like that, or just throwing it the opposite way or not even looking at him. So yeah, in terms of trade deadline, not a lot of things happened, which I think the Browns should have traded Odell because I think if you wait to this offseason, trade him, his value is going to be very much lower than it was now. Especially a team like the Packers, who probably would have gave up a decent amount for him to get a solid wide receiver too. But I just don't know what the Browns are doing with him, especially since they're not even gonna. Doesn't even look like they'll play him. I just don't understand what the whole mindset is moving forward with Odell.
Yeah, part of being a good team is admitting your mistakes. I think going off topic, recently the Cowboys cut Jalen Smith, the Packers signed him, and then they did the same thing. They cut him. And I think it's a sign of, okay, this player's not working out, move on. I think that's almost a strength is recognizing your weaknesses and fixing them. And the Cowboys and Packers are two pretty great teams in the NFL. They have Super Bowl chances. Browns are kind of in the middle because I feel like they're still trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, OBJ, I've always liked him on the Browns, but it just hasn't worked out. It's just a simple case of that. That's news to me about him not being on the team, but it's just kind of weird. I wonder if something behind the scenes happened or whatever, but I mean, if he's not going to be on the team, then at least get something for him in trade. It's just
Mhm.
very odd. And I think that the Browns are a team that kind of could be going in a bad direction with OBJ not on the team. Jarvis Landry, wow, he was good friends with Odell. He's like, what's going on? It seems like Baker gets along with him. I think that the Browns, I loved them last year. Even though I'm a Ravens fan, I love them. And this year, they've been disappointing. And I think that if they don't figure out Baker, they could have some ramifications about what to do with the quarterback. I think that this Browns team, they need to make the smart moves in order to sustain the success. And I don't know if they're doing so. Um, so it's gonna be interesting to see how the Browns play out kind of this season. I think they'll finish around 10-9 wins, maybe being the playoffs is hard to say. I do think the Eagles definitely should have traded players. I know the Jordan Mailata was in the trade rumors, but that didn't make sense because he's a young tackle and you have a young quarterback in Jalen Hurts. I do think Fletcher Cox should have been traded. I love what you said about him on times. That would have been so cool to see him and Jeffrey Simmons paired up. I do think Fletcher Cox should have been moved. And yes, I love watching him play. But I feel like a team like the Raiders as well would have been really nice to see. Um, I'm surprised that the Dolphins didn't trade away any of their corners. I think someone like Byron Jones, he's been good in Miami, but he could have been on another team. And I wish more great teams made good moves. I thought that the Derrick Henry thing would have been kind of a wake up call. Like, oh man, injuries happen to running backs. I think that the Bengals should have traded for Philip Lindsay. Lindsay's a running back on the Texans, one of like 5 million on the Texans. He's still good. I've always liked Philip Lindsay. Listen, the Bengals are going great. Joe Burrow, fantastic. Jamar Chase, beyond fantastic. You have Joe Mixon, who's great. He is known for having injuries. And if I'm the Bengals, I would have said, okay, Texans have a fifth round pick, have Lindsey. I think great teams maybe should have gotten some insurance. I don't know if I love the Rams releasing Desean Jackson because he's depth if you need it. I think the Cardinals should have traded for a pass rusher because with JJ Watt out, I thought they should have made a move. I think that good teams should have had more moves. You mentioned OBJ to the Packers. So that's something that I thought that more teams should have gone kind of insurance just in case. Unfortunately, they didn't. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Yeah, definitely a quiet trade deadline. Before the trade deadline, there's a lot of big trades. I mean, the Gilmore one, obviously, Zach Ertz and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. But then when they actually came to the trade deadline day, I don't know. I think teams kind of just like maybe like second guess themselves almost. Maybe the Browns are
Yeah.
like, maybe we can make this Odell thing work, and then
Next day, not on the team.
yeah. So yeah, that makes no sense to me. And then same with Fletcher Cox. I definitely think they should have traded him because Eagles are a rebuilding team, and I think they should be doing Fletcher Cox a favor and at this point of his career, kind of let him go get a Super Bowl run, kind of like what the Cardinals did with Calais Campbell a couple years back, some similar to that. But yeah, for sure, nothing crazy, but definitely some cool moves. I mean, definitely seeing Von Miller moving was pretty cool and stuff like that. Nothing, and Melvin Ingram, not a bad trade for the Chiefs, and yeah, just a kind of a okay deadline, nothing crazy.
Melvin Ingram was kind of interesting to me because the Steelers are 4-3. They have a winning record, which is shocking in a sense. And they beat the Browns this past weekend, which was shocking. And I'm like, they could be a playoff team to a degree. I don't know. The Ingram, it's a good move for the Chiefs. They need defense. It was kind of a bit of an interesting move for the Steelers. What do you think of the point of what I said about that good team should have gone insurance in case of injuries? Like, I think that's something that could have maybe happened here and there.
Yeah, I definitely think some teams could have done it, but I think also other teams are just kind of like we like the squad we roll with. We don't want to give up anything else and kind of go on with it. But I definitely think depth and insurance in this league is definitely something you look for. I mean, Deshaun Jackson, that situation was weird, but Deshaun Jackson did want to be released because he thought he was
That
being
is true.
underutilized. But I don't know if Deshaun Jackson, what he thinks he's going to do on another team because he's good, but I mean, he's kind of just a deep threat at this point, not like prime.
Packers.
Yeah, maybe like a Packers type of thing. Um, I think some team will definitely like to have him on their squad. But no, just yeah, definitely insurance policies. Like I feel like you can never have enough corners and pass rushers, and then all like offensive linemen. I feel like you can never have enough of those guys. Um, but I think a lot of these teams, especially these Super Bowl contending teams, are just kind of rolling with the squad they got, which I also don't mind because it's like they're confident what they got and for
Yeah.
good reason. I mean, every 7-1, 6-2, 6-3 team or whatever is pretty good up to this point. So
I think a part of this, I just wanted to see Phil Lindsay on a good team, to be honest. But
not one of
anyways,
the Texans a million running backs.
oh no. Yeah, I think it was all ultimately an interesting week of the NFL. So thank you everyone for watching this episode and enjoy this weekend of football. Hope your team wins. Hope the Cardinals bounce back, Mason. Real quick, how do you think they do against the 49ers? Because the 49ers are gaining momentum, Cardinals are not. So I think it'll be close, but I think Arizona wins. I think maybe by a field goal, but I still think they win.
If Kyler plays, I think we win. If Kyler doesn't, it's just move on to next week.
Oh, does he have an injury?
Yeah, he has an ankle injury, so he might not play
Oh,
this week.
I don't think they should play him because that 49ers front is really
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind just sitting him for a week for sure.
Uh, they would be 7-2. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's still good. Then you have the
Hmm.
Panthers. That's an easy win. Who's the backup? Colt McCoy's good, so I don't know. It'll be
Hmm.
interesting to see how things play out. But whatever happens, we'll be here to cover it. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care and bye-bye.